and welcome to Axumawian Media. My name is Melat Habtu and I'll be hosting Inside Tigray, a show that will give you a Tigrayan perspective on global, continental and statewide affairs. Please tune in, listen, engage and participate for a constructive and insightful discussion. Hello everyone, welcome to Inside Tigray. Today's episode, we've got Sarah here for us. Sarah is, as most of you know, she's been a part of the Tigray Survey Initiative, which we have seen being spoken about on so many different platforms. And Sarah's here today to tell us more about it, to tell us about why she chose to, start this initiative and lead it, and what the benefits, the pros and cons of this initiative are. I don't think there are any cons, but we'll explore everything. Sarah, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just introduce us, give us a bit of background information. Who is Sarah and what does Sarah do?
Yeah, thanks so much, Mel, for having me on the show. I really appreciate the platform and the opportunity. Yeah, so my name is Sarah, and I started with the Tigray Survey about 8 months ago. It's been a while now. And I got into it as part of my broader advocacy work related to Tigray. So when the war first started in 2020, I honestly didn't know much about Tigray. I mean, I had visited and I knew that my father was from there and my grandparents were from there, but it wasn't like the connection that I have to it now. So in this last 2 years, in advocating for the people of Tigray, I've really strengthened my connections to my roots, and I just want to make sure that I'm a voice for the people in the best way that I can be, and I'm using all the skills that I have to the best of my abilities for Tigray and to amplify what's happening there. So I also went to the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who's leading the Tigray survey, and so that's my connection there. And so when I saw that the school was looking into different ways of estimating mortality in Tigray, I wanted to be involved in some way. So that's how I got involved with it, and a bit about why I do what I do.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sarah. So what you said you got involved because of the school, the institution that was leading the initiative you were a part of at some point or still are. So what's your role within the initiative? Are you leading it? Are you kind of facilitating the work alongside the community, like creating that bridge in between, or what is your role in the survey?
Yeah, so in terms of the work within the community, that's all me. So I'm a lot of ways, as you said, the bridge between the researchers who will be focused on the analysis and who designed a really great methodology in terms of robustness, in terms of making sure we get the most unbiased data as possible. There's always bias, but they've really constructed a strong methodology. And they'll also be involved in the analysis. So I'm just the bridge to the community to ensure that we're all aware of it, that we're all doing our best to take part in it and amplifying it. So that's my role, and I really believe in the survey as well, because it is one of the ways that we can help Tigray make sure we're recording history, recording what's happened to our families. And so I've been pushing it for the last several months, and I really do believe in it and the impact it can have.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us more about the Tigray survey. What does the survey consist of? Who can take part in the survey? And what's the processes of actually involving yourself in this? I know a bit about it because I've heard you speak about it before, but the process of registering, the process of actually putting yourself and recording some of the things that are required for the survey. How do people go about doing this, and who is eligible?
Yeah, so first off, just what is the Tigray survey, right? So it's It is a survey, and it is trying to assess changes in mortality over time in Tigray. So it's going to look at pre-war and current times. So it'll compare mortality rates prior to November 4th, 2020, and post, and see a change, to try to see a change in excess mortality in both adults and children. So the aim of the study is really to inform the humanitarian response, which all the humanitarian actors that are involved, government stakeholders and civil society in Tigray, just so we can put a few more numbers to the dire extent of what's happening in Tigray.
Okay, so how would you recommend people access the survey? Where is it available? And also, how do they know if they themselves are okay to actually take part?
Yeah, so the survey is meant for anyone of Tigrayan background from Tigray, but who is living outside of Tigray. So whether that be in the diaspora or within Ethiopia also. And so if you are of Tigrayan background from Tigray, if you are over 18 years old, and if you have not filled the survey in yet and no one else in your family has filled in the survey yet, then you can complete the survey. So it's really, we used to have an age restriction of 18 to 49, but we've recently changed that from feedback from the community and also to try to get more engagement. So we're hoping with the change in age eligibility that more people will be able to participate.
So in terms of security for the people who are filling out the survey, in terms of maybe if there are issues of confidentiality, there are other risk factors involved, like they might not want to come out and say, yes, I've lost these family members, this has happened. What kind of guarantees are there in place to ensure that people do feel safe to take part?
Yeah, so that was a really key point to the development of this survey because of the sensitive nature of the topic. And so they made it as anonymous as possible. So the only information we're collecting is to achieve the aim. We're not collecting any personal identifiable information. So it is as anonymous as possible. And part of that lies in the methodology of the survey. So once you fill in the survey and complete it and submit your results, you're redirected to a different system where you can yourself invite other members in the community, your friends, relatives, or colleagues who might be able to fill the survey, and you can check with them first to make sure they haven't received it, and you can send it to them. So it's really in the hands of the community, and if it cascaded, so if it went past, like if people kept sending it on after they completed it, the researchers themselves would have access to very little information about the people who are filling it out, besides the information needed to determine a change in mortality.
Okay, great. So, but for example, there's a lot of us in the diaspora who may not have, for example, an immediate family member, like a mother or father, that are in Tigray, or like a sibling there. But we do have like extended family, like aunties and uncles and other extended cousins. And a lot of people sometimes feel like speaking on what's happened to your extended family member may not hold as much weight as, for example, your immediate family members, because they feel like, okay, maybe I might be told that's not my mom or my dad, or that's not my direct family member, or I might not be that close to that family member. But what would you say to these people? Because some of these people do not have a lot of people in the diaspora to actually submit to some of the information in surveys like yours. So how do we go about knowing that these people that you may not be that close to are still your family, and what's happened to them still needs to be recorded in efforts such as your survey?
Yeah, so that's definitely a challenge and a methodological limitation. But I would say first and foremost, you don't have to have lost anyone to participate in the survey. So everyone can fill it out as long as you meet the criteria. And because that's how you kind of see the change, right? Because you need a baseline level and then you'll see the changes in mortality. So the survey only asks about your immediate family. It asks about your parents, your siblings, siblings' children, your spouse, and your spouse's family, so their siblings and siblings' children. So it is, and the reason that is the case is to avoid duplication of data, right? So if we were all submitting the information and we're all like related, there could be a lot of duplication of data that we wouldn't know because we're not collecting identifiable information. So so that's why it's that way. If you know of family members who are cousins who you wouldn't be able to like fill for them, like if there is someone else in the diaspora who could fill it in, or who is outside of Tigray who could fill it in, we encourage you to reach out to them and tell them about the survey. So it's all about word of mouth, and obviously it's not perfect. There are a lot of deaths that will not be able to be recorded just because of the limitations in that sense. But to be able to make sure that data isn't duplicated, that's why. But we're going to record as much as we can with the information that we have in the diaspora and those outside of Tigray.
Yeah, a really important point that you raised actually was the fact that you know, when we're talking about this, we immediately think of the diaspora, of family members in the diaspora in the US and Europe and Asia, all of these different continents. But there are Tigrayans that are still within Ethiopia, may not be within Tigray, who have felt a lot of losses, who have been impacted with a lot of losses, and that may be still within the country. How can we encourage them to take part in this? Is it something that we should, you know, do it? Should we do it for them? Should we explain the survey to them so that they take part? Is there any resources available, for example, for people who have language barriers, and are these available for them to use?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, share it with them. There's a lot of resources on the social media pages at Tigray Survey, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and there's a website, and everything is available in English and Tigrinya to make it more accessible to Tigrinya speakers. So we're really trying to make sure that as many people as possible that can fill in the survey do. So there are materials for them to be able, and if you encourage them to, hopefully they will sign up to receive the survey and fill it out. So, but another important part about the survey is that it's based on an invitation. So it's kind of a two-step process. So you'll sign up to get an invitation to the survey, and then once you get the invitation, you'll have to fill it out. And that's because the cascade, so people sending it to other people is part of how you analyze the data, but it's also to make sure that those who are receiving the survey should actually be receiving the survey, right? So we want to make sure that it's going to the people that it needs to be going to.
Okay. So how do you feel about the response you've received so far to the survey? Has that been something you're happy with, maybe slightly disappointed with? Is there more that we can do in the diaspora to support this effort?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a really tough subject, right? And it's really difficult to do because it's about, potentially the loss of your loved ones. So it is difficult, but the impact that it will have will be worth it. Engagement so far has been pretty low. So we have a sample size of 1,250 participants who complete the survey. And so far, as of a few hours ago, we're at 139. So that's like, a real fraction of the sample size that we need. But I'm happy that we've gotten to where we are, and in the last few weeks we've made a lot of progress. I'm not going to say that I'm not a little bit disappointed, because I really hope that we would, participate more. And there are certain things that make the survey like a little harder than just, click the link and get like a Google form and fill it out. It's a bit more complicated than that, and I understand that, and the intricacies involved in it. But I would have hoped a bit more engagement. So I really encourage every individual to spread it among your community, really make it a grassroots thing, make sure everyone's aware about it, understands the importance of it, which we can go into the different reasons why it's important. So yeah, it has to be a collective effort for the community.
Absolutely. So wait, did I just wanted to confirm that I heard that right? So the amount of people, participants that you guys won are 1,500, did you say?
1,250.
1,250. And so far you have 139.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we're definitely not doing enough of a good job. I think we all need to take accountability for that, because I've heard you speak about it many times. And myself personally, I should have been able to pass it on to at least 10 family members. So we have to take accountability 100% for not taking this on board. And I hope everyone does. But one thing I would like to go back to, actually, because you mentioned, for example, death that happens within the war might not directly be as a result of the military kind of incursion. So it might not be because soldiers killed family members or soldiers directly assaulted family members, but in fact it could be as a result of the siege, for example, right? So it could be through lack of medication, through lack of food or aid, through various things. So how does that come into play during the survey? Is that included? Because a lot of people may feel that their family members maybe lost their lives as a result of the siege and other aspects around the genocidal war, which the siege was a part of. So is that included in the survey, and should they still complete the survey?
Yes, of course. Everyone who can should complete the survey. And speaking directly to cause of death, so it'll ask you, how many, like, about your parents, if they are alive or if they've passed away. And if they've passed away, it'll ask you a series of questions. So it'll ask you the month that they passed away, or the year first. And then if it's between November 2020 and current times, it'll ask you the month. And then it'll ask you where, and then how. So the how will say, direct intentional wartime, injury, starvation-related death, and disease. And it'll give you different options that you can choose from. And then if you choose starvation-relaed or disease-related, it'll ask you, do you think this death could have been prevented had there not been a blockade and restricted humanitarian access? And then you can say yes, no, or I don't know. So it will reflect that in the survey, in the results.
Okay, so you heard it here, guys. Anyone who has been affected by various aspects of the conflict, by the siege, in any way, and has been affected by these things, should definitely take part in this survey. But also, if you feel like you haven't, you could still register to see whether you will be eligible to complete it, based on some of the information you give the researchers. So please, it's not, oh, should I fit in? Do I fit in? Should I go ahead and complete it? It's do it. And you will be either taken forward to the second stage, or if they feel like that might not be necessary, you don't have to do anything about it. So it's literally 10-15 minutes of your time. It will not take that long. Actually, I need to ask you, how long would the survey take for people to complete?
Yeah. So it depends on how many siblings you have and how extensive. So if you have, the more siblings you have, the longer it's going to take you. But if you have a small family, if you have only like one or two brothers or sisters, it could take as long, as short as 7 minutes. But then if you have a spouse and you have like 5 to 10 siblings, then it could take half an hour, depending on. So it really does depend on how large your family is.
So even if you have 10 siblings, it won't take you more than an hour. An hour of your time is nothing compared to some of the work that these guys have been putting in to organize this initiative. And I think we need to support this by showing up, by making sure we take part in these initiatives, because this is the building blocks of a lot of the justice and accountability even that we want, because without having data for us to be equipped with, we could not really argue most of the things that we have been advocating for. And when people such as Sarah are taking a lot of time out of their personal lives, of their work life, and being involved in initiatives like this, I think we definitely need to take part. But just coming back to Sarah as a person, Sarah, just tell us about, for example, some of the things that you wish to see in the future in Tigray, some of your aspirations, some of the work you're thinking, hopefully, of going back to do in Tigray, because we all know you're very talented and academically so well equipped to handle a lot of the issues that we face currently. So what are your aspirations moving forward in Tigray?
Yeah, so I think about that a lot. And so right now I'm currently completing my PhD in malaria. So I'm a public health specialist by expertise, by profession. And I've been doing that for the last 5-6 years. So I'm getting my niche in the Vivax malaria world. And so, but I've done all sorts of different studies also in government and international relations prior to my work in public health. So, right, a big part of what's happened in Tigray, it's been wholesale destruction, but the impact on the healthcare system it's huge. It's, part of the reason we have the crisis that we have today, just because of the targeted destruction of the health system and the, looting of medicine and ambulances and all of the infrastructure that existed. So that's where I see, myself playing a part, is rebuilding that in it's going to be such a big task that we're all going to have to be involved in. Different individuals and organizations are going to have to come together to do. But yeah, I definitely want to be involved in that, among other things, in terms of ensuring that the voices of the people of Tigray are heard for years to come.
Yeah. So I know for a fact that you're a part of many organizations, many advocacy efforts. So tell us a bit about the other work that you do outside of this current survey and the other organizations that you're a part of.
Yeah, so my first involvement with any org started with me messaging one of the orgs and being like, do you need help proofreading? And that's how my journey in advocacy orgs started. And that org is Omna Tigray, and that was in March of 2021. And so from there, I learned so much. I became more and more involved in the teams, in the research, in the writing, and I learned so much about our history and our culture. So now I work a lot. I spend a lot of my time on Omna and making sure we produce the content and we're recording what's happened. So yeah, making sure we get the situation reports out and making sure all the different content that we produce to make sure that our voices are heard. And then after that, I joined Health Professionals Network for Tigray, because I felt like if I don't join that, something's wrong, because I am a health professional. So the little time that I could give to HPN for Tigray, I did. And it wasn't so much in my capacity necessarily as a public health professional, but just amplifying the work that they've been doing and really making sure people are aware of the impact that HPN has had. And I'm also part of Mዕባለና civil society, and that happened later on. I was asked to join, and who can say no to a minority within a minority? My grandfather was Irob, so I am Irob, and so I really want to make sure their voices are heard, because a lot of the time they're silenced and drowned out even within Tigray. So we really got to make sure that a population of 30 to 45,000 gets heard, and make sure that they exist, because right now, the Irob are facing an existential threat. So I joined Mዕባለና and have been also helping out where I can there to make sure, that the plight of the Irob is documented and heard and advocated for.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you've just like very casually just mentioned 3 different organizations, 3 very big organizations. And I'm sure everyone speaks so highly of you and how much work that you do. You're so hardworking. So you have a massive role within all 3 of these different organizations, as well as conducting, being involved in this initiative that we're currently talking about, the Tigray survey. So, Sarah, how do you manage to have all these things and still have your work and this personal life? And what kind of advice would you give to a lot of people in the diaspora that maybe find it hard to even get involved in some advocacy efforts because of time constraints? How have you managed to do it so well and so gracefully?
Yeah, so that's something I've been contemplating a lot these days, because we've been doing this work for 2+ years now, and it's taxing, and it's a lot of long hours and constantly being engaged. And I wish I honestly took more time to do some self-care activities. I'm working on it. I don't do it as much as I should, but I think it's all about drive, right? And what drives me. Like for me, I just feel like I want to do everything I can, and I created a schedule for myself, and blocked off my different times for different work that I need to do, making sure that I have time to focus on my PhD work. So balance is important, but I want to there's no time like now that we need to keep advocating. So I'm trying to rebalance my life and make sure that I have the energy to keep going, because we're in for the long haul, for the next dozens of years at this point, to really rebuild and recover and make sure the current atrocities that are taking place do stop, so both short-term and long-term. So yeah, it's challenging, but there, as I started with just reading through documents every so often, and then I learned more and wanted to participate more. So if you do want to contribute more, it's hard, right? Because you have to be mentally okay to be able to do this kind of work, because we're constantly consuming so much pain and so much violence. So you have to be able to be okay, somewhat okay. None of us are really okay, but somewhat okay to be able to do this type of work and do it consistently for a long period of time.
Yeah. So where does Tigray survey fit in your aspirations when we're talking about what you want to achieve? And we covered that, but what kind of impact will it have in the future, in 10 years time, 20 years time? And these impacts, how will they what kind of aspects of what we're lobbying for or asking for, advocating for right now, will they be able to help us with?
Yeah, I think anything we're doing today, it might feel like what we're doing doesn't have an impact, because we're going against geopolitics, which is which is impossible, right? But we are making an impact. The fact that we have so much documentation and information available in English to the outside world to be able to say, you know, this is what's happened, even though it might not be the narrative then, 5 years and 10 years, there'll be that evidence, there'll be the information that people can go back to and can say, you know, this happened. And, you know, if we don't get genocide determination now, maybe we can keep pushing to get it in, you know, however long it takes. So having the numbers, having the evidence behind what's actually happened is so important, right? Even though it's individual people, having numbers is how we advocate in a lot of ways. Like when Ghent University published their original 500,000, you know, deaths, and then moved it up to 600,000, that was the number we all latched onto to show, you know, the extent of what has happened. And there have been since then other estimations that have come out, you know, in different age ranges. So the more numbers and the more information we have, we can get a more complete picture while we're in, you know, still in a situation where Tigray is kind of inaccessible. Lots of parts of Tigray is still inaccessible, and information is not easily accessible, or at least this type of data. And so this is something we can do from the outside, right? We don't have to be there. We don't have to, you know, it's a way for us to contribute from the outside without being there, and making sure that the information we have is recorded in a way that is, you know, rigorous and is analyzed and is published in a peer-reviewed journal and is publicized. The results are publicized. So it's really important in terms of documentation, in terms of what has happened to, you know, to our families, you know, being able to document that in a safe and anonymous way, making sure that, you know, it raises more awareness, as I said, with publications that will come out. You know, hopefully humanitarian actors and the response will be reflective of the dire need, right? Because right now, we know there's a lot of access issues, and though aid is getting better, it has to be sustainable, right? And it has to be reflective of the need. And to know the need, you need to have numbers. And if we have more numbers in terms of the extent of the crisis, then hopefully we can, the humanitarian community can respond appropriately, and the right number of resources are attributed to Tigray.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point you made. Numbers are essential to be able to actually even not just use them for advocacy purposes, but for later on, for the declarations later on, for pursuing justice and accountability later on. Some of these research initiatives are very important. You know, Sarah, I think you said you're a part of the institution that you are a part of the institution that is conducting this initiative. And I think that goes to show how much influence we can have within the institutions that we're currently in, how much support we can give. To a point where we can make sure that these research are victim-centered, because we ourselves are the victims. So we can have so much autonomy over research that's done. And like Sarah said, these numbers are what we're latching onto. But, you know, sometimes I hear a lot of Tigrayans say, why does the West not care about us? Why does the US not care about us? Why is there no damning reports coming out? But the reports build off some of the research work that's being done by these institutions. So if there's 139 people that are taking a part of this survey when there's a requirement of 1,250 people, that goes to show that we're not really engaging with these institutions for us to even have concrete evidence later on, or even in the present. So when we ask these questions of why is this institution, why is this country not saying something, why is this international organization not saying anything, what research elements do they have for them to latch onto, for them to actually build on, to start gathering evidence of the things we want evidence to be gathered in? So without the initial research being done, and without our part in it as the victim community, it's really impossible to ask, why are they not helping me when we are not helping ourselves? So I think it's very important that we take on board what Sarah has said today, the fact that there's only been 139 people. I think we could do a lot more better than that. And hopefully, starting with myself, I take accountability and we will try to spread this as much as we can. But also to anyone who watches this interview and knows Sarah or doesn't know Sarah, and here's what she's saying and all the hard effort that she's been putting in. I think we need to show how we are also going to respond to these initiatives, to the Tagaru behind the scenes, like Sarah, doing these, taking part in these initiatives. So Sarah, is there any closing remarks you want to make? Anything, any message you want to get out there? Feel free.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Mel. And just to reemphasize how to participate. So there's a Google Forms to sign up to participate. So you'll send your contact details through that form. And then if you meet all the eligibility criteria, we'll send you an invitation. And you'll click on that invitation. Make sure you're ready to fill it out before you click it, because it's a system where that specific link was only active once. So make sure you're ready to, and then once you fill it out, make sure you send it to people at the end once your results have been submitted, because that's how the survey should move. It should move through our community that way. So please make sure you're sending it to others. And all I can say is just please participate and make sure you're sharing it within your community. So we can, hopefully you can find the Google form link on any of the Tigray Survey social media platforms. In the profiles, they'll have the link to the Google form to sign up.
So Tigray Survey are on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. What other social media platforms are they on?
Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, so if you do type Tigray Survey on these platforms, you will be able to get their social media handle and follow the instructions from there. We will also try to include it maybe in this interview in the link below. So hopefully people can be able to access that. But if not, you can find it everywhere on social media. You can also reach out to Sarah and myself and other people. And we will direct you to it. So there is no issues and there will be no excuses about not being able to find the survey. Hopefully not anyway. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time. I know we're keeping you up late over there, but thank you so much for taking a lot of time out of work and your sleep to be with us here today. Much appreciated. And that will be us for today.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Inside Tigray. We will be back next time with more topics and more guests.